I've later at reunions talked to classmates in town who I so idolize in town, and they said, "We thought you farm kids. We felt inferior to your farm kids." I think we all feel, wherever we're from, that someone's better than we are. But we, as farm kids, we felt like hicks. That's a sad story. It's not necessary. Displayed in the library, or somehow I found it at Abrams Library, a book by Roy Chapman Andrews called Under a Lucky Star. It was written in 1943, and I'm talking about 1948, 49. So it was out shortly. It's his autobiography. And how many have heard of Roy Chapman Andrews? He grew up in Beloit. He became director of the American Museum of Natural History in New York. He led, I think it's 5 expeditions to Mongolia, the Gobi Desert, made many discoveries of dinosaurs and other animals that became extinct, the large animals, and found the first dinosaur egg, which established that dinosaurs related to birds. And I thought, if someone from Wisconsin can become an adventurer and have such a life, I found it as an inspiration. I took the book home with me and read it. The book has been out of print for about 25 years, maybe more. But I wanted to bring it back into print, Under a Lucky Star. Discovery magazine, a short time ago, said it's one of the 25 best science books ever written, which is quite a advertisement, I mean a comment. And so I'm pleased to have a book that was very important to me, Under a Lucky Star, his autobiography. The first chapter is about growing up in Beloit and his life along the Rock River. The other book was by Glenway Westcott. Is that name familiar? Glenway Westcott. He was born in 1901, I believe. The book was published in the 1920s. It's called Goodbye, Wisconsin. Westcott was part of the expatriates in France in the 1920s. He grew up on a farm, mainly a pig farm, the edge of the Kettle Moraines in Kewaskum, Wisconsin. And this was another Wisconsin story. The first chapter is beautiful. The stories are fiction. The first is pretty much nonfiction of his returning to Wisconsin. He was in Chicago at that time, and what he observes along the way, a beautiful essay, Goodbye, Wisconsin. He then ended up being in the literary world, living in New Jersey, moving his mother and father to his home in New Jersey, but always having Wisconsin as his heart, but was glad to say goodbye, at least at an early age. A coming-of-age story by leaving Wisconsin. So Wisconsin is in our hearts, it's in our stories, and I just can't stop writing about it.
Is there any explanation for why Wisconsin has produced such a number of environmentalists and outdoor writers and naturalists, all the way from John Muir to Gaylord Nelson and in between? Is there something in the Wisconsin character that produces this, or is it not a unique thing?
Yeah. Well, for one thing, it's probably not unique. You go to any state and go to a good bookstore and look at the local section, and you see the local writings, nature writings, other writings, fiction, nonfiction, and surprise the writers that you don't hear about, but the rich literary tradition in all regions. You know, the South is the classic one. Faulkner, Eudora Welty, so forth. But Wisconsin has, you're right, its share of writers, and particularly around nature writing, as say Aldo Leopold you think of. Yeah?
Well, speaking of nature, I think they may like to hear what the topography is like around your farm, the Quinney Farm, and what you've done now with that farmland. It's not just sitting idle and empty.
Thank you. Gail Olson Folkers is my cousin. Are we first cousins? We're probably first cousins. First cousins if your grandfather and grandmother are brother and sister. I think that makes you first cousin. I've heard one way of explaining it. So when I talk about the Holloways, this close. And Gail and Dale live 5 miles or so from the farm on Stallman Road. The farm is glaciated, rolling land, 160 acres. It started, I think, John and Bridget in 1868 bought 20 or 30 acres and built a house in what I call the old place. And it just has all the magic in the world that I would ever need. So my brother and I, inheriting the farm in 2000, have tried to preserve it and not have it immediately subdivided. And we've given it a good try. Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, located in East Troy, a leader in sustainable agriculture, has been renting the land, and I think 4 current demonstration projects going on, various kinds of crops through the University of Wisconsin. And John Hall, the agronomist there, is experimenting with various kinds of crops. That's one direction. If we continue that direction, I don't know. My brother and I are actually meeting tomorrow to talk about what should happen. And for the first time, I'm saying maybe we'll have to sell the farm. But before that, various members of the family will be able to have a portion of it, those who want to. My brother has 7 children, I have 2. And so in a way, that may be keeping it in the family as a way I hadn't anticipated. But it's still hard for me to do that. It'll be as hard as clearing out the farmhouse was 2 years ago. That'll be another story, if I can tell it. That'll be the saddest story ever told. What else, Gail, could I tell?
Well, you have the orderlies there, you know, and the cattle.
We had the wild idea that we should have some livestock. You know, the cows were gone. The herd was sold. My father started out with the purebred jerseys in the 30s, and then with the war and milk being valued according to volume rather than butterfat, changed to Holsteins. Not a big herd, you know, 30 cows. But so we were without cattle there, and we thought it'd be good. So, and Solveig was born in Norway, and I'd become familiar with fjord horses. So we bought a fjord mare and had 1 horse. So we have fjord horse. Gail comes from a life of horsemen and has followed our horse career very much. Want to buy a horse? I could. She has fouling disease, but she's still on her feet. Fjord horse, oh, it's in the pony class. It's how many hands high? What's called hands, 12 hands tall. It's a dun color with a black mane that goes from its nose to its tail. And a huge neck. It won't use a regular collar. You almost have a special collar made for it. In Norway, It's an all-around horse used up to pull boats along the fjord or in the fields. It's quite a horse, yeah. And there are few, and most are purebred.
Where'd
Yes.
you get the horse?
Agnes Lee is her name, located about 4 miles south of Clinton. And she and her husband, for years and years, have had, maybe 20 fjord horses, and sell them and breed them and drive them and work them in the fields. We've seen them working them in the field. If we return to horses and don't use Belgian horses for plowing, a fjord horse is a good horse. Mm-hmm. Likes to be out in the cold too. Mm-hmm.